What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the physics of skateboarding. So a lot of people wonder how somebody gets a skateboard off the ground because there's no spring propulsion like a pogo stick. It's not like a trampoline, but somehow when people jump, the board comes up with them. Well, if you've ever seen a seesaw, it's kind of like that same idea. So an ollie is the simplest skateboarding trick where you pop the board up off the ground. Skateboarding is just physics and rhythm. The physics is what you do, and the rhythm is when you do it. When a skateboard flips or spins, it's flipping and spinning on 3 axes: the long axis, the mid-axis, and the perpendicular axis. If you're just looking at the bottom of the skateboard, you can only see 2 of these because that's 2-dimensional. But we live in a 3-dimensional world, so if you turn the board on the side, you can see the 3rd axis. So a skateboard is shaped a lot like your phone. If you pick your phone up and try to flip it, it's easy to flip it along the long axis, like a kickflip. Now if you flip it along the perpendicular axis, that's more of a spin, and that would be like doing a 3-shove. A 3-shove is harder than a kickflip. A regular pop shove, it's easier because you don't have to spin it all the way around 360. You're only spinning it 180. If you could just halfway kick the board and land upside down, that might be easier than a pop shove it. But that doesn't work because you don't have wheels on both sides of the skateboard. So you can do a pop shove it, but doing half of a kickflip doesn't really work. So technically, a kickflip is easier than a 3-shove. But if you try to flip your phone vertically on the mid-axis, doing like a monster flip or an impossible, it's really hard. You might say it's impossible. That's because of a law called the intermediate axis theorem. The intermediate axis theorem will affect anything that has 3 different axes, and the moment of inertia is different for all 3. Because the board is longer than it is wide, it affects the skateboard. The only way to make an impossible or a monster flip as easy as a kickflip would be making the board a square. So I'm thinking about doing this for a video. I've done this before. I filmed it, but I don't know where the footage is. So if I made a board that was a complete square, put trucks on it and wheels, I could do forward flips, like impossibles, without wrapping my foot around the board, and it would be just as easy as a kickflip. It would actually be easier than a kickflip because the wheels would be helping you, and doing the kickflip on a complete square board, the wheels would kind of be in the way. So there's a lot of complicated math that goes into it, but doing an impossible without dragging your foot along the way is really hard. It might be a little bit easier on the board that I drilled holes in just because you have air flowing through there, but it's still such a long board. You need a lot more force to flip the board in that direction than you do to do a kickflip or shove it. So you do need more force, but also you need more time because it's going to move slower in that direction. The kickflip's going to be the fastest and the other 2 are going to be slower. But also it's going to be more unstable because the board is not a complete sphere or a complete square. It's going to be unstable. People who don't skate are always asking, how do you ollie? How do you get the board off the ground? Well, that's complicated because there's not just springs. It's not spring-loaded. It doesn't bounce. It's not connected to your feet or taped to your feet. Describing how the ollie works actually adds 2 more axes that we didn't even talk about before. So instead of working like a trampoline or a spring, if you've ever seen a seesaw, like torque, like a lever, that's how you get the board off the ground. And the pivot point is not in the middle of the board, but rather right over the truck. So each of the trucks is a pivot point that acts with torque as a seesaw to lift the board up. So when you push down on the tail and pop, it's moving on that pivot point, and then you're dragging your front foot up and evening the board out in the air. So it's pivoting over the truck at first, and then when you're dragging your front foot up, it's actually pivoting off the middle of the board. So yeah, there's two more axes when you're talking about ollies and getting the board off the ground. When you're talking about flipping the board, once the board is in the air, there's only those three axes. There's so many more factors that go into it. All of this is to fight gravity. Also, you have to think about friction. The grip tape is really abrasive. There's a lot of friction going on between your shoes and the grip tape, and that helps you drag the board off the ground. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this kind of content, reviews, tutorials, and videos about what I'm learning as I grow as a skateboarder, hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching.